good day, everybody. Welcome back to our Working Together series, live with Rabbi Karmi Ingber. We're just waiting for the rabbi to arrive. He should be along any second. Today, he's planning on doing the fourth mindset from his book, Where the Heavens Kiss the Earth. Excellent book. I recommend everybody look for it on Amazon. That's Where the Heavens Kiss the Earth. But the fourth mindset today he plans on sharing is the secret to building great relationships. Always a good time with Rabbi Ingber. But currently we're just in the Netiv chat room with our Rod Bryant. Rod, how you doing today? How's everything down in Texas? I see we've got Lisa up on the screen.
Yeah, Lisa's on the screen. There we go. I guess you have to talk to be seen. So, yes, first of all, thanks, guys, for joining the live stream. Really appreciate it. Rabbi Ingber has a great book that he's written, and we're going through the class, really discovering things about improving ourselves and making our relationships better, et cetera. And it's very rich.
Important.
You'll be glad that you're tuning in. So thanks. I really appreciate it.
From that beautiful Orthodox angle, he's got his unique gift to share, and it, just seems to pop all kinds of ideas in the mind for sure.
Also a talented singer as well.
Yes, we did a Sukkot a gathering last Monday with Rabbi Ingber there in Bet Shemesh. We did a broadcast on Monday with him, and sadly, the stream they got beautiful visuals with the camera, but when you use a cell phone on broadcasting, the microphone has noise cancellation because it's designed as a phone, and so it was canceling out the music, but they looked like they were having such a joyous time. You could see them really wailing away on the guitars, and he had a violinist and other musicians there, people playing the bongos, people with rattles and tambourines, and it was all set up sukkah. It was a beautiful looking setting. You could tell they were having a good time. And
but you couldn't hear any of it.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that, guys. My apologies.
No need to apologize, Rabbi. Thank you for airing and being with us. And so on that note, I'm going to shut my camera off for you, Rabbi, so that you don't get your feedback. And
okay,
we're going to turn the class over to you, Rabbi. So good to be with you. Look forward to hearing what you have to say on building relationships.
Wonderful. Just to pick up on what you said about before, just last year I was supposed to come to Texas, and then I had to cancel last minute. I had a health issue, but we are planning our Texas trip again. So I just got the phone with some of the rabbis in Houston. So we're planning either December or January date. So we're gonna again try to do a concert. So even though it looked fun, you couldn't hear it, but it will be fun. We'll have a nice concert. Those who can make it out to Houston, we will, see everybody there, and we'll give you information as it comes along. So that would be great. Okay, so I'm going to jump in on our topic. So the topic that we're on is we've been doing the structure that I have, which is called the 7 mindsets, which is basically I took some concepts from Torah and try to create them into a system that will help people in their own personal development to attain fulfillment in their lives. So we're up to number 4, mindset number 4. Okay, I'm just going to review a second just to give you the flow. The first concept was purpose. Everyone has a purpose. Life is purposeful, and it changes our entire mindset when we recognize that we are here for a purpose. Okay, now what is your unique purpose? That is mindset 2, which was to recognize your own qualities of what God gave you, because he gave you something that means that only you can do it. This is a fundamental Torah concept. It says that why did God create the world? When he created the animals, there were many elephants, there were many tigers, many lions, but there was only one couple. Why did it start from one couple? Adam and Eve. To teach you that whoever saves one life saves an entire world. Whoever destroys a life destroys an entire world. That means a human being is an entire universe, that every person has something that they are meant to do in this world. And that means that your qualities of what you have are unique. And without you, this system would not be created. If you were created, you created for a purpose. You were created for something that you could do and no one else could do. So the purpose that we all have, which is how to go, has two levels to it. One is when we live our lives righteously and correctly through the mitzvot. Someone who's a Noachide does the 7 mitzvot. Someone who's Jewish does the 13 commandments. Those mitzvot are the connection points to complete yourself and the world. And what that is that the crucial aspect to understand and purpose is that you're not here for no reason. People think, and it's the most depressing concept. I don't know how people who believe in, let's say, the random ideas of Charles Darwin, how they wake up in the morning. And really, honestly, I hate to say that's why there are these school shooters and these crazy people, because it must be torture to actually live a life where it's all meaningless. So people get lost in movies and television and in all the entertainment field, but that's not true. Life is very so purposeful that God created you to complete the process of the creation He made. He didn't make the world perfect. Did not. He created the world and left it at a point where perfection, to reach perfection, is in the hands of people. Because otherwise, we're just robots. We're not here for any purpose. So what He did was He created the world in the perfect place of the opportunity for us to complete the mission. Once we do it, we fix ourselves. We become God-like because we become givers through doing the mitzvot and our unique qualities in ourselves. We end up perfecting ourselves and help perfecting the world around us. Those are the first two mindsets we talked about. The third mindset and third and fourth move into a new category. It moves now into understanding the challenges you go through in your daily life. Mindset number 3, which was called unique challenges, really says that and it's an amazing concept. Listen to the concept clearly, just to review it again. It means as follows. The challenges you go through, that everyone goes through, are tailor-made for your next step in growth. Now, I know that's hard to imagine, because when we go through a problem and the car doesn't start, or we get fired from a job, or God forbid, serious things, we can't imagine that is tailor-made for our growth. But we don't know. We don't know what our mission is. We don't know our soul. We don't know the complexity of all the factors in the universe. And therefore, to understand that the challenge that you have right now is, if you deal with it properly, that moves you to your next step of development. It's a tailor-made challenge. And I'm going to just prove this to you in 1 second here. And it's very simple. Whoever has children loves their children. Normal people love their children. And they would never harm them. And everything they do for their children, which the child feels maybe mean and cruel, how can you do that? We know as parents, we're doing that for the betterment of our children. So certainly, obviously, God, it's called the Abba Rahman. Whatever degree you love your child, you must understand God loves you infinite times more than what you could love. And that's a matter of fact why God created the system like this. Why is there 10 commandments? The right side is between man and God, and the left side is between man and his fellow man. Except there's one exception. The 5th commandment, which is on the right side, is to honor your parents. Wait a minute. Why is that on the side of the commandments between man and God? I mean, God, have no other God to take God's name falsely. Why is it on the side between man and God? There's many answers. One answer is because the only way you could understand the relationship that God has with us is once you have your own children and you realize, well, I love my kids. I would never harm them, and everything I do for them is for their good. Then you can have a relationship with God. And that's why the parental dynamic is so crucial in the development of a healthy human being. Now, a person can have sometimes there are bad relationship with parents, and you could re-alter that by substituting and realizing God is your parent. And if you had parents that were unfortunately not there for various reasons, you could rewrite your script, and that's what you have to do. But it becomes much harder because when you grow up and you're completely dependent on someone else, meaning your loving parents, if you feel you can rely on them, you transfer that concept and that mindset to your relationship with God and the world around you. And you can see that people who have had bad relations with their parents very often don't trust anybody. Okay, we can fix it, but I'm just saying that's the dynamic. So the third mindset is to realize the challenges you have right now. If you take a second and say, wait a minute, okay, this is hard, but there must be a proper and healthy way to respond that will be for my ultimate good, even if I don't understand it. That's the third mindset. Now, today we're going into a new, similar idea about dealing with the challenges of your life. But this fourth mindset is really going to be centered on the challenge that come up in how you relate to other people. And very often that's some of our biggest challenges. I'm upset. This person did that. I have my children, my parents, my friends, my brothers, my sisters, and I don't like the way they treated me, and I'm angry, and how do we navigate that? Okay, now I want to share with you here. The truth is, this is one of the 613 commandments. It's not one of the 7 commandments. So you do not have to do this. Someone does not have to do this. I'm going to explain to you one of the reasons why it's not one of the 7 commandments for Noachites. I'll explain one of the reasons for that as I understand it. But I'm going to say to you that I think it's worthwhile to think about it this way, because if you could do it, you will transform your relationships. And I'm going to explain to you why it's one of the 13 commandments and not one of the 7 commandments in a second. But let me say what it is first, and then I will explain why it's not obligatory, but it's something that you could use, and you should use, I think. So there is a law that Jews must keep where they are obligated to not take revenge. And what does revenge mean? Revenge means that, and I'm going to make this a little bit easier to understand this and make it relatable. Let's take it in your context with people that are your friends, people that are in your circle. This is one of the reasons why this is not applicable in the whole world, because sometimes there are evil people, right? So sometimes you have terrorists, and you can't say, well, don't do anything, let it go, because that's the wrong approach. So I'm just giving you the idea, that I'll explain to you in detail where it's applicable, and it's not applicable, and why it's a commandment it's a 13 commandments out of 7 commandments. But one of the 13 commandments is not to take revenge. Now, revenge means, let's say my friend comes to me and says, I ask my friend, can I borrow a cup of sugar? And they say no. And then the guy comes back to me and says, oh, can I borrow a cup of milk? And I say, no. You didn't give me the cup of sugar. No milk for you. Sorry, buddy. You're going to sleep tonight without your warm milk. Too bad. That's called revenge. Now, that one we can kind of understand, especially if it's an okay person, you kind of feel bad, you take revenge like that. But there's another commandment, which is like this: I can't bear a grudge. So why can't I bear a grudge? Because the guy comes along and says, I say, can I borrow a cup of sugar? He says, no. The next time he comes to me and says, can I borrow a cup of milk? And I say, yeah, you can. You know what? Because I'm not like you. So I give it to him, but I'm begrudging. I'm angry that what he did to me. And that is one of the commandments, like, we're not allowed to do that. Now, why not? So I want to tell you this is an amazing, amazing concept. One of the sages explains. There's two systems that happen in the world. One system is how people interact with you. Okay, this guy's a nice guy. You ran into a good person, a bad person. But then there's an overriding system of what God wants for every individual. For some reason right now, you were not supposed to get a cup of milk or a cup of sugar. Why? I don't know. A guy has diabetes. I don't know. For some reason, he shouldn't have sugar right now. To teach him a lesson, maybe it's for his own good. Maybe because he needs to stop thinking about how he acts. I don't know the situation. I don't know what. But for some reason, this person should not get the sugar he's asking. It's not the right thing. To teach him a lesson. He did something wrong to someone else. He shouldn't have something sweet in his life now. He needs to fix it up, and God's giving him a fix up by not giving him the thing he wants, whatever it is. Now, what happens is like this, that God, though, moves the world, that good people bring good messages, and bad people are the bad messengers. So what happens is that I can get angry at this person and say, wow, you're a jerk. You didn't give me sugar. Or I can say, you know what? I have a whole new way to look at this. That's your problem. Maybe you're not a nice guy. I don't know. But whatever happens to me, it's between me and God. It's like the example like this. Imagine a person who takes a stick and he throws it at a dog and it hits a dog in the head. What does a dumb dog do? He gets angry and starts biting the stick. But wait, why are you angry at the stick for? The person threw the stick. The stick didn't do anything. That's the deeper understanding. When somebody hurts us, yes, they may be doing a bad thing, and they may even be bad people, possibly, yes. However, if you look at your life, the things that happen to you are arbitrary, and people are doing something, and someone's hurting, and someone's doing that, and therefore I'm lost in this maze of randomness, that things happen to me out of control. I get angry. But if you understand the deeper reality that there is a guiding direction in the world, and for some reason right now, you ask the stingy person so you don't get sugar. And you understand, okay, that's okay. I believe there is an omnipotent God, and he is directing the show. Now, you might be the bad person. That might be true. But that's your problem. That's not my problem. I was once counseling a woman, and she had a big problem with her parent, with her mother. And she's going off about her mother, and her mother this, and her mother did that, and her mother. And I say to the woman, I say, you know, I just want to stop you a second. I don't know if you know this, but your mother is 8 years old. She says, what are you talking about? My mother's 62. I said, no, she's 8 years old. She says, no, she's 62. I said, I'm telling you, she's 8 years old. And all of a sudden, the woman, her eyes lit up and said, you know what? My mother's father died when she was 8 years old. And I said, exactly. And right now, this is an 8-year-old child that's stuck in an adult body who has issues, who has separation issues, who has anger issues, who has betrayal issues, who has a lot of issues. And what's happening is that you don't realize it because we're all so busy in our own world that we see this person as being intimidating to us. This is my 62-year-old mother yelling at me. But inside, there is a person who is possibly stuck. Now, again, you got to be careful with this because you can't say every person that hurts you, Yeah, that's their problem. They're stuck in their childhood development. No, maybe you're stuck, you know. So when somebody gives you rebuke and tells us something against you, you should think maybe you're wrong. But you don't have to lose control and lose sight of everything. You could say, wait a minute, okay, did I do something wrong? And if I did, you know what? That's not a problem. As a matter of the Talmud says, a person should train himself to say, I made a mistake. It's not the worst thing. Everyone makes mistakes. That's not a problem. The verse in Proverbs says a righteous person falls 7 times, an evil person falls but once. Because if you fall, you get up, you make a mistake, you can admit you made a mistake. The problem is the evil person falls once because they can't admit they're wrong and they dig their heels in. So if somebody comes to you and does something to you, you should, what I try to say, well, okay, listen, I'm not going to figure how wrong they are. Let me think for a second myself, how wrong am I? And I always tell people, I have no problem apologizing to somebody if I'm 1% wrong than 99% wrong, because it's irrelevant. I, on my 1% was wrong. And most interactions you have with people, it's very hard, especially if somebody hurts you, that you don't do something back that's not appropriate. So I have to consider, what did I do wrong? Now, what you did wrong, I'm happy to share with you if you want. But if you don't want, then that's your issue. That's not my issue. And this is a and this is the deeper secret, how a person could not get into revenge and holding a grudge, because they don't look at it as other people control my life. It's not, you don't have the power over me. There's one power in the world. And therefore, okay, so you are not nice. I understand. There's a lesson for me to learn from this. There's some reason I needed to go through this. Now, if you are the bad messenger, okay, that's your problem. But I don't have to get stuck in that problem. I want to tell you where you see this in the Bible, where you see this in the Torah. It's an amazing place where you see this in the Torah. So you look in the story in Genesis. We just started Genesis this week. We look at the story of Joseph and his brothers. The brothers sold Joseph into slavery, and there's a whole thing, if you understand about it. They believe that he was trying to destroy them, and therefore they believe they had a right, because in Jewish law, we don't say turn the other cheek. We say if somebody comes to kill you, kill them first. Okay, we don't believe in that. If somebody comes to kill you, the law is that you should kill the other person first. If you don't have to kill them, you have to kill them. No, but you don't gotta. If somebody comes to kill you, then you stop them. You don't say, okay, it's okay. So the brothers believe he just was trying to destroy them. I'm not getting into now why and where, but they made a mistake. They had good intentions, but they made a mistake. Now they sell him into slavery. They decide not to kill himself into slavery. He ends up in Egypt. He becomes the viceroy, the assistant to Pharaoh. Really, he was the king. Pharaoh let him run the whole thing. And the truth is, after Pharaoh died, Joseph was the king of Egypt. He was actually king for 80 years. I mean, could you imagine that? So he was the king of Egypt. And that's why it was so bizarre when they turned against the Jews in the beginning, when they turned against the Jews in Egypt and they tried to enslave them. The Pharaoh at the time didn't want to do it. He says, how can you do that? This guy saved us. Joseph was like, he was like the savior of Egypt. So anyway, he becomes the most powerful guy in the world at the time. When the brothers meet him afterwards, and the whole story, and he reveals himself to them. Later on, after the father dies, the brothers are concerned Joseph would take revenge and punish them. And God forbid he would never do that. But they came and they said, Joseph says the father, and they said, listen, our father wants you to forgive us, and this and that. Okay. Joseph says the following. He says, listen, no, you don't understand. You had bad intentions. You thought for bad reasons. You thought to sell me into slavery, but God had a different plan. What was God's plan? God's plan was to send me here to save us, save the whole world. It was a famine for 7 years, and Yosef, who in the story who interpreted the dream, understood. He saved himself. He saved Egypt. He saved the whole ancient world. They were starving, and the brothers, and the house of the Jewish people. He saved the world at the time. So he says to them, "Listen, you guys, you saw it badly, but God had a different plan. He sent me here to save everybody." Now, it was comforting because, okay, we helped out. We sent Yosef to save the world. But he didn't let him off that easily. He said, "You guys had not such good intentions. You sold me, but God had other plans." What was he saying to them? He was saying to them, "Listen, that's your issue to work out. I'm not God. I'm not going to punish you. I'm not taking this into my own account. God deals with me in my way, what I need, and sends me what I need. And that's true for you. It's true for you. It's true for everyone. And therefore, okay, you had your intentions, but God had different intentions. That's for you to figure out." This is a very, very powerful message, which you can do with every person that is a decent person. I'll explain what the limitations are. A decent person. I'm not talking about an evil person. I'm not talking about a terrorist. I'm not talking about a Nazi. I'm talking about these people. But a person in your circle, it's a friend, it's family, when they hurt us, so what we automatically do is we get defensive. And it happens for a couple of reasons. One reason is because there's a place where we might be wrong also. We don't like to admit we're wrong. So let that go. It's not the worst thing to make a mistake. As long as you say, "I made a mistake," you can fix it up. Okay. So the person hurt me. I say to myself, okay, did I do anything not right in this situation? They didn't invite me to their get together. Okay, did I do something wrong? Did I hurt them? I think about it. And I determine, okay, I did this wrong, or I didn't do this wrong. I might ask them, I say, "Why'd you do this?" And what happens is when you ask, well, they get very defensive. Unfortunately, most people are not really capable of handling criticism, unfortunately. And that's why it's one of the laws in the 10 commandments is to give rebuke. And there's a big question: can the world people handle rebuke today? So what happens is that but I determine whatever that the person, I've gotten my information, I understand what they did, and then at a certain point I realize, you know what? They are functioning with, and I've accepted what I did wrong, but they're functioning within their own limitations. And we all are. We're all functioning in our own limitations. And therefore, I don't have to be angry about this. I can get above the dance, because the dance is the negative interaction we create with our friends and our family. Because I am hurt now, but if I think about this differently and I say to him, "Wait a minute, there's a reason why this happened. There's a reason why I had to go through this. Might not know what it is. I could try to figure it out. But you, the other person, is not able to encroach upon me in any way that God did not allow and say was something that was for me to experience. So I don't have a personal vendetta." Okay, maybe you're stuck in this thing. Maybe like the story I said before. You're an 8-year-old. The mother's an 8-year-old woman. And when I told this to this woman, it changed her whole relationship, because she was able to say, "Well, yeah, my mother, her father died at 8 years old." And when she's doing this stuff, instead of, we don't see it. We see the person and we get angry. We see the person and we don't realize that they are stuck where they're stuck. And that's their issue. It's not your issue. Again, you have to figure out what you did wrong. But once you determine that and they hurt your feelings, Okay, but that's something that I had to experience. That's between me and God. You were the bad messenger who wouldn't give me the sugar. Okay, so you got to work on it. You sold me to Egypt. Okay, you had a bad intention. That's your problem. You want to discuss? I'm happy to help, but that's not my problem. I once shared this idea with someone. He told me an incredible story. One of my students told me the following story. He said he had a friend who was a very timid guy, very timid guy. And he was living in New York City, which is not a good combination. I lived in New York for a couple of years. Timid and New York, they don't go together. And the guy is taking the subway every day. And if you've ever been in a subway in New York, I hope you haven't, because it's not a pleasant experience. People are shoving and pushing and elbowing it up. And this timid guy, he's getting knocked around like a pinball throughout the whole subway every day. Everyone's pushing him, elbowing him. This is going on for, I don't know, years. One day he says, I've had it. I've had it. And the next person that pushes me, I'm going to shove him back. So all of a sudden, he gets pushed from behind. He turns out and he throws the guy, pushes him across the side. He goes, "What, are you blind?" And he looks. The guy was blind. When somebody does something to you, take it as a lesson and understand they may be blind in this area. I don't got to get upset about that. It's a very, very powerful approach to dealing with all of our relationships. And the mindset is so powerful because the mindset means that I am in a relationship with God. And I do not have to worry that somebody is going to encroach on something that can't be. Now, it's hard to imagine that because sometimes people do very terrible things, but still, there is justice in the world. It's one of the biggest problems in terms of the American justice system. Unfortunately, you have people who they have killed and sent to jail for their whole lives, and they find out the guy was innocent. Could you imagine that? They sent the guy to jail for life, and I saw this recently. The guy got out, 85 years old. They found that he was innocent. Oops, sorry. It's terrible. Yeah, okay, we're gonna give you a life supply of rice-a-roni. I mean, like, what are we gonna do? The guy's 119 years old. Yeah, whole year you'll have rice-a-roni. It's like, and that's why in Jewish law, we have to do the law from what we know. What's would be many things in secular court would be called circumstantial evidence in Jewish court, because we understand that we need to act and do what's right. If we see evil, we need to stop it. But we also understand that we're not the ultimate arbiters of the world. The ultimate judge is God. Everyone's going to get what they have to get in the end. No one is getting off scot-free. Nobody is getting what they don't deserve, either in this world or in the afterlife. And so therefore, when we know for sure we do it, but we don't, we have to say, okay, we believe that God's going to take care of it. When you don't have that view, so you have to do everything you can for justice, even though you might make a mistake. And that's terrible. I mean, it's good when you get it right. When you get it wrong, it's terrible. Something you can't fix. This is a very powerful mindset. So the mindset is that I am in a relationship with God where the things that happen to me are not accidents. They're not accidents. They're not other people controlling my world. Now, again, you should stay away from bad people. Again, we don't believe in turning the other cheek. Is not a Torah concept at all. It's a Christian concept that we don't You hold the exact opposite. It's not the same thing. A person comes to hurt you, you defend yourself. And you should try to stop a person that's going to hurt you. But when something happens and you get stuck in the spiral of the negativity of our minds because we are now angry and we're upset and we think this and we think that, then in a certain sense we're disconnecting from the deeper message. The deeper message, okay, this was supposed to happen for some reason. Is that person a bad messenger and maybe a bad person? Yeah, maybe. But that's their problem. That's their problem. It's very freeing when you understand this, because it's like, whoa, there's no one else that can do anything to me that's not supposed to be. It's very freeing, you know. We're here in Israel, thank God, you know, and we're like, okay, you know, some people go into bomb shelters and some don't. I mean, I was speaking in the synagogue last year when the sirens went off. And you know, like I had a question, like, you know, I said, if people want to go, feel free. I will not judge anybody here. But if those who want to stay and with the Torah that was going to protect us here and we're doing the right thing, those could say it. I kept speaking, and almost everyone stayed. You know, so okay, it doesn't mean you don't make your efforts to get into. But again, the point is that, you know, and here's a very deep philosophical point, because you have to understand, if we're negligent, we can't say, oh, this was meant to be. You can't go and, you know, and jump off a bridge and say, well, if I was meant to live, I'll live. You know, you can't go and abuse your body, you know, and eat junk food for, you know, your whole life and smoke packs of cigarettes and say, those who want to stay, because then we're bringing into our own reality. We're negligent. But when we're not negligent, and even if we are negligent, it's still God's responding to us in kindness, that he's giving us what we need. So once we have that, we have a whole new attitude, a whole new mindset. Okay, so I'm going to take some questions and I'm going to explain this a little bit further, but I want to see if we understand this concept. The fourth mindset is to understand that it's you in a relationship with God, and things that are happening to you are being directed and not accidental, and nobody else thereby controls your world. And if somebody hurts you, you know, you're allowed to feel hurt. I'm not saying no. Don't get stuck in that thing, because they're just a pawn in the system. What you need to learn, and everything is a personal love note that God's sending you. Okay, let me open it up to questions, ideas, and I'm going to explain a little more why this is not one of the 613, one of the 7 Noahide laws, even though I think that it's very healthy for us to do this in relationships. I'll explain why it's not one of the 7 Noahide laws in a minute. But one reason, I'm sure there's infinite reasons I don't know, but because God didn't tell us all the reasons why this is that. But I'll give one reason that I understand. But let me open to questions, ideas, and comments first. Feel free. Yes.
What about mistakes that we made? Like if someone does something to us, I can see, well, God's working in my life, accept it. But say I raising my children, I did something wrong. There's or if you've married the wrong person, not that I have, but I mean, how do you get to the point where this divorce, the children I've had, there's so many consequences because of my choices, and it's not necessarily that God did that, or God was in control of my bad choices.
Very good. Great, very good question. We're actually going to get into this more deeply, this one point. But let me try to answer it briefly. That's a great, very important question. So when I make mistakes, so there is a process that I can fix up what I do. Okay, there's a process that God created. It's called tshuva, where a person could go and I did something wrong, and now I can fix it. How do I fix it? I regret it, and I admit it, and I say I'm going to change. And when I do that, I end up redirecting my life. And that's a person needs to go and to be willing and open to do the tshuva process. The tshuva process is very, very crucial. It is not like, again, some people take these things like I know some religions will tell other people and then they'll feel better about it. This is between you and God. Again, if you hurt someone, you have to go to them and apologize. But the ability to fix up something is a crucial component in the fabric of the creation. And without it, we can't function because we all make mistakes. So you made a mistake, you did something wrong. Okay, that's not the worst thing. The worst thing then is not to fix it up, because when you fix it up, you will change yourself. You'll learn from your mistakes. You'll make the world a better place. You can even fix up that situation. You did something wrong with the kid, and this happens all the time. We all do stuff wrong with our kids. Nobody who raises their kids doesn't make mistakes. But what happens is once you own it and once you realize it and once you start acting a certain way, then you will not only change it in yourself, you change it in your kids. Now they have to be willing to accept the change. But what happens very often with kids, for example, is that we don't see is that, let's say I interact with my child in a wrong way from the time they're little. What happens is then you also get into a dance in the relationship. And the kid will learn how to, for example, how to milk that. Depending on this on what the child's personality is. But some children will then actually develop a certain negative way to act, and they know the parent will respond a certain way and will feel bad about it and feel guilty about it, and they'll press those buttons, and it actually keeps the child in the same process. It's a fascinating thing. Where some cases where when the children grow up, the kid already knows the parent feels bad about this, and by guilting the parent, they actually sometimes are maintaining that dance. So what I want to do is I want to be a person who, like King David. King David, when King David, the whole story, King David is certain, certainly the most misunderstood person in the secular world, because they think King David made a mistake. Again, the woman was actually the story of King David. The woman was not married at the time; she was divorced, and there's whole different rationales of why what he did was not as it seems to be. But the Torah does not go and if a person does something wrong, we don't care how great he is or righteous he is, he's called out on what he did wrong. So on some level what he did was wrong. The prophet comes, tell him he's wrong, and he says, yeah, I'm wrong, and the ability, and now this person's the king. Could you imagine going to the I don't know, to a world leader and saying, yeah, you're wrong, and then you guys are, yeah, I'm wrong. No, you're wrong. What are you doing? So that ability, which really King David really exemplified in many ways, to say, I made a mistake, I'm wrong, and now to fix it. And the three-step process starts with regretting the mistake, admitting the mistake, bringing it out, and then making a plan not to do it. That is what we have to do. So we all make mistakes. And as I said before, in the interaction I have with this person, I'm talking about how they're wrong. Could be I'm wrong. And so therefore, it's what you're asking, Barbara, is very important, because it's very easy to go and say, "Oh, I'm going to be magnanimous. This person is blind. They're stuck. Maybe I'm stuck." So it only works when you really work on the ability to not to be afraid to be wrong. It's okay. It's human. Everyone makes mistakes. The verse says there's no righteous person that cannot make a mistake. So we all make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. So what? I made a big mistake, but and I know it's a hard thing to fight because we all hate to admit we made a mistake for whatever reasons. I know myself. I saw it in my own development how it was like there's a certain place where, for various reasons and how I was raised and various certain situations I grew up, it was like there was like almost a sense like caught you, gotcha. And so like I never want to admit I'm wrong because then I'm going to hear like the gotcha sound. Yeah, you see. But that's something we have to get past. So if you made a mistake, that's okay. Now, at that point, you say, "But God created the world and accepts that a person could fix up. They did wrong things, and therefore I fix them. When I fix them, I change the situation. I change the reality. It's very important, very very crucial.
I have
Yeah,
a question.
yeah, sure.
Okay, so the seven, they say I've heard some rabbis say they expand out to 90. Some say I've heard the rabbis say they expand out to 30. But to me, like, on Chabad, they have every day they list a commandment or several commandments. So I try to look at that every day. And if I see this just applies to the Jewish people, then I'm like, okay, next. But to me, something like that would sort of come under establishing courts of justice if you were going to expand it. Because to me, anything that kind of depends on your relationships with other people, I would think is Noahide in order to have a righteous society that's going to work, that would be something you would need to do. Okay, so good. So this is what I want. This is what my own theory here. One of the reasons this is not a Noahide commandment, and one reason I shared it with you because I do see that this changes the way people interact. That's why I'm sharing with you. But I want to tell you one of the reasons why I feel this is not an obligation, and this is hard. I'm going to say because I always share with you, and I believe this very deeply to be true. People, a lot of people unfortunately have very negative associations with the Jewish people on the idea of the concept of chosen people. They feel it's egocentric, it's ethnocentric. It's not how it works. Hashem loves all his creations. The Jewish people have a certain responsibility, and therefore they have a larger obligation to be in the 24/7 camp of doing God's commandments. And anyone who wants to become Jewish can. If someone doesn't want to, they don't have to. So the system is very fair, so to speak. But there's one part of it that I find hard to say because I don't want it to be insulting to anyone, but I think it's important to understand this, and I believe it's true. So I'm going to share with you. I try to share with you what's true. When I look at the world in general, the world at large, there are some people that are actually evil. There are. So I don't want you to apply this to Sinwar or to the Iranian leaders who want to kill people, not the people who don't want that. But I don't want you applying it to the terrorists. I don't want you applying it to evil people. Don't apply it to Hitler. Don't apply to those people. And so therefore, if the commandment is don't take revenge and don't bear a grudge, well, there's certain people that in the world you need to take revenge. You need to get rid of these people. A terrorist, and this is very, very crucial because it says, "Oh, Hashem sinura," those that love God hate evil. When you look at these people, and it's fascinating today. These people, these pseudo liberal loving people who love terrorists. It's amazing. It's mind-boggling. The Israelis have gone as I told you, too far. Again, protecting civilians is the right thing to do.
But there's a few problems in this whole war. One is that I don't know these civilians, how many are innocent and not, because when Americans bombed Germany, they didn't say, wait a minute, did you vote for the Nazi party? I mean, this was the Nazi elected party. Hamas is a democratic elected party. Everyone that, and most people until recently now, maybe it's changing now, were supporting, were part of this. So I don't know who is the innocent and who's not. I don't know. And second of all, war is, unfortunately, there are casualties. And third of all, is people are hiding behind human beings. So they tried to go literally, to this very, very far degree to go and to make sure they targeted, someone they knew had killed someone, not someone that assisted in killing, not someone who supported killing. Okay. And so the world yelled and screamed. Okay, maybe they're just really loving people, and they just can't. They just love people so much they can't stand the fact that maybe one person who didn't do it got hurt, and children, and so okay, maybe that's the case. I want to ask you a question though. If that's the reason, then what were they yelling and screaming about when the most targeted against terrorist action ever in the history of warfare, when their pagers exploded? What were they yelling about then? I mean, that was unbelievable. They got the terrorists. They had information that this is what they were using, and that the terrorists holding things, blowing up in their hands. So what were they upset about then? Because they weren't upset they were blowing innocent people. They said they were killing the terrorists. So there are people in the world that you have to know that doesn't necessarily apply to. And this is the part that's hard, and it'd be hard to say because I don't, I see it, and you could take me on what I'm saying or not, but Jewish people, that because Hashem set it up in a way that there's not a Jewish person, there are people who do bad things, but in their essence, are they evil? No. Are there people like Amalekites, Nazis who actually sell out their humanity? There are some people like that, as the Ramchal says, not that many, thank God. As the Ramchal says, most people in the world, can be fixed up and have a portion of the world to come. Talking about the entire world, I'm not talking about Jews, talking about the world. But there are some people like Hitler, like these Hamas terrorists, these Hezbollah terrorists, who they sold out their humanity. And those people, you can't function in this way because it's not going to work. And someone should tell that to the American administration. They don't. They kind of think, wow. I wonder why Iran wants nuclear power. Must be they don't have enough oil. Yeah, it must be that. What do you think? So if you have that, so that's why it's not. This has to be done carefully, and it's a hard thing to do. But that's why I said to you, in terms of your friends, in terms of your colleagues, in terms of your family members, in terms of the people that you know to be decent people, then you could see the good in them and understand that they don't fit into that category, and then you could use this process. That's the reason I think it's not. I mean, one reason. I'm sure there's other reasons why it's not a Noachide obligation, because as people who are the majority of the world, there are some players amongst the mass of the world who are bad apples, and who if we apply this to them, they will take advantage, and they will do terrible things, and that's what happens. And it even happens with Israeli warfare. They don't really understand that the enemy is not going to do the same thing that that we would do. We would not go. Even if we conquered someone, there's a certain morality that we would always do, that I don't know if you heard, it was a terrible thing. Like one young girl, she was taken care of, she just killed herself. One, 22-year-old girl, and what she went through there, what they tortured her for and then they got her out, and she couldn't handle life anymore. So what the torture that these people could do is not something that you can look away from and look at the good that's really the good deep down inside of them. Some people you have to do that with. That's how I would explain it. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yeah, Rabbi, we've been having a discussion along these lines on the YouTube chat. I read last week, I was reading in the opening of the Zohar, he used a definition. He said, kindness to evil is basically the definition of darkness. And he really talked about the beginning of creation, and darkness was over the face of the deep. But what was really going on, the point being that it's kind of like the way you're explaining it somewhat. I mean, darkness, is, and the way light and dark interact, darkness not just being the absence of light, but variation in shades and yeah. But he used the description that kindness to evil is darkness.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's really why I'm saying it's an interesting thing. I mentioned it before. There, unfortunately, there are Jews who do not do the right thing. Many of them, and I look at them. I look at people. Hey, Stephen, good to see you. I look at people like, like I say, like I don't know. I always quote Mark Zuckerberg or Sigmund Freud or Karl Marx, and to me these are very unsuccessful Jews who did some not good things. Or Albert Einstein didn't, but they thought they were doing good. Like Mark Zuckerberg thinks he's doing good. Maybe he's starting to get a little sense in his brain these days. I don't know, but sometimes you see there are people who are doing things that are not good, but they think they're doing good, and then maybe you could find the good inside of them. But unfortunately, there are some, and not a lot, but there are some people that have sold out their humanity. Again, not a lot. Thank God, it's not a lot. That's why we're doing these classes, because we want the whole world to be part of the connection to Hashem. And Hashem loves all his creations. And Hashem does not want the evil people, but there are some people like Hitler and and the Hamas people and Hezbollah people, and these people are literally sold out. And that's why this whole, what Obama was trying to do with really bringing back the Iranian power and what this is all about, I don't know. Yeah, it's a good question. I have a lot of theories about it, but there's some really, really bad players here, and you cannot deal with that. You cannot. A person who goes around killing people for whatever their thing is, that's not a person that you could have a rational conversation with.
All right.
You can't.
Rabbi, can you take a question from Facebook?
Sure. Yeah.
Anne is asking, she says, thank you, Rabbi, for this teaching. What do I reply to my family that are still in Christian churches who pretend Israel should learn to love their enemies because this is what their J person teaches?
I have to find you where some of the verses are, but again, it's hard to know to talk to Christian people because they have sort of selective amnesia about certain verses. They they change around. So there are many verses in the Torah that say, "Oh, Hashem Sinura," people who love God hate evil. I don't know that you could answer that, because they've taken this philosophy, which is a fascinating thing. The philosophy of turn the other cheek. They don't believe anyone should do that except for the Jews. That's the funniest thing in the world. Like, I grew up in America. In America, if Mexico was lobbying 1,000 bombs into America, there's no American that would say turn the other cheek. They would flatten the place. So they don't actually live like this. They want the Jews to live like it. But I don't know what you could say to them. That is, you could say to them, I guess, that this is, I don't, it's against, but the problem is like this, who am I addressing here? I just want to say her name. Who's asking the question? What's the name? And so, the problem is, like I always said to people, and I've told this story before, I'll tell you again. I was once on a plane with flying back from Israel, and there was this guy next to me from Tennessee. He must have been 6'9". He was gigantic, and he came just from a mission, to Israel, from a Christian mission. They sit next to me in the plane. And I guess he was feeling the urge to missionize or whatever, and he wanted to show me the light. So he said, "Can I ask you a question?" So I said, "Sure." So he asked me a question, and I answered his question. And okay, I forgot what he asked me. I said, "Can I ask you a question?" So he said, "Yeah." I said, "Let me understand this. So you have something you call the New Testament, and you have something you call the Old Testament, which was the Torah. We call the Torah, the Bible, and you believe in both of them, right?" He says, "Yeah, believe in the old one and then the new one." I said, "Okay." So I have a question. It says in what you call the Old Testament, it says, "Lo so slifa lo sigra." You can't change the law one drop. You can't add or subtract one tiny thing. So how can you have, and then the second book saying, cancel all the laws? How can you have Paul saying he wants to free from the curse of the law when the book that you have, the original book, says you can't change the law ever? Now, I asked him this question, and I saw his brain kind of exploding next to me, because it's a quandary you can't get out of. What do you mean? The book says here it can't change. What says change? It's a contradiction. If you say you don't believe in the first one, okay. If you say believe in the first one. So he goes, I don't know. But one time my foot was caught in a trap and I screamed out and I was saved. I was like, okay, I can see what happened. The rational mind just went out the door, and you're getting very emotional, and you're 6'9", and we're on a small plane sitting next to you. This conversation is over. There's nothing to talk about. So I don't know, Ann, that they're going to hear you. But since the Torah says that we have to remove evil in many, many cases, Ov Hashem Sinura, I can find you the verse where it says that exactly. It's one of the verses of Hashem Sinura. We see various stories which means to remove evil from the world. Once you have that idea, so you have a different idea. You want to turn the other cheek. We don't believe in turning the other cheek. We believe that a person has to deal. Now, again, where they're sort of getting it, and this is always the issue here where it's tricky, because JC was a Jewish person, and he was a student of Rabbi Yeshua ben Parchia. He was a student, and the whole story there, which was censored, where he was the rabbi kicked him out of the yeshiva, and the whole story there. What happened? It's the Christians censored it, but we have the censored. We have all the censored versions. So basically, but he hadn't changed all the laws. He changed a little bit. It was changed much later. As I'm not a Christian scholar at all, but I think it was Paul at the So it's called what's it called this, the Nicene, I forgot what it's called, but he changed it. He changed the law because he wanted to make it accessible to non-Jews, right? Because what happened was the early Christians were ascetics, so they weren't having more children, so they needed to expand the idea. So that's when they changed the law. But the problem is it's a contradiction. So if they accept the original Torah, it doesn't say that. If they have the other version, but one of the parts that's tricky is that since JC was Jewish, and he is Jewish. The truth is, there's a lot of writings about what happens to him, what isn't happen to him, because he was a Jewish person who got into a difficult situation. So what happened was that the idea that I said about seeing the good and not bearing a grudge, which is an obligation every Jew has to his fellow Jew, and that obligation is not one of the 7 Noahide laws, but that would, in a certain sense, apply to your friends and family that are not evil, and you could see the good in them, then you should apply this, and you should understand they want to do the best they can, and they're stuck. But when there's a person that's evil, as you know, the Bible says, the Torah says that Timcha Zecher Amalek says you have to eradicate the Nazis. What's a Nazi? We don't know what Moloch is today. A Moloch was the people that are embodiment of evil. Now, where are these people? Who knows? We only know when someone accepts the philosophy to kill and to destroy and to maim. That is a sign that this person has sold out. And that is, I always tell you, the Nazis we know were called a Moloch, again, we don't know which one, because the German people, it's all mishmash. There was, all these different city-states that became unified at some point. So, but the Nazis themselves, they showed the telltale sign of a Moloch. The telltale sign of a Moloch is, it says that when they first came to fight against the Jews, when the Jews left Egypt and they crossed the Red Sea, and the whole world was about to be transformed, everyone, all the nations of the world said, this is it. There's a God, and he's directing the world, and they were all ready to jump in line and to do what's right. And that's why Moloch came to fight. And the reason why they came to fight is they knew they were going to lose. But they said, if we fight against the Jews, and even if we lose, but we're going to cool down the temperature, they're going to say, okay. So they were on a suicide mission. They knew they were going to lose, but it was worth it to them to fight against God and his people. That's a telltale sign. So when the Nazis had a choice to save themselves and to use the cargo, the trains and the cattle cars to go and to transport arms to the front line, or to transfer Jews to kill them, they chose to kill the Jews instead of saving themselves. When the Hamas and Hezbollah are willing to blow themselves up and their families to kill the Jews, that means that they are on a war against God. And the verse says, as you can tell them if they want to look there, they made a new verse, they made a new story up. But it says that when somebody is a Molech, it says, I don't know what's in the English, but in Parshas Ki Teitzei, in the end of Parshas Ki Teitzei, it says, you must eradicate the ones who are the propagators of evil. You must eradicate them. That's what's in the Bible. You want to change it? You could change it. Okay, that's your Bible. But that's not what there's and most people are not evil, but these enemies. And by the way, it's what they're saying is so untrue, because there are so many Arabs, and I hear it. I hear it myself. My brother had some Arabs who were doing some work in his house, and this is a couple of years ago. And they all moved into Israel proper. And my brother said, "Why did you do that?" I said, "Because we don't want to be under the Palestinian Authority. It's the last place we want to be." So many of the Arabs and even the and that's what President Trump was doing when he had the brilliant idea to the Abraham Accords. Why are you dealing with the terrorists? Go and get the Arabs who don't have this level of hatred. Okay, they have a thing. If they know they're going to have their lives going to be better by having a good relationship with Israel, they'll be willing to do it. So that's what he did. He circumvented dealing with the terrorists. But people that are evil and terrorists, okay, you think you can negotiate with terrorists? You can't. And you got to remember that those terrorists, the ones that are protesting, the Iranian regime, they call Israel the little Satan. You can tell them they call them the big Satan. the wars between the Christians and the Muslims during the Crusades, it was against the Christians and the Muslims. It wasn't they killed the Jews along the way, but the infidels they held were the Christians. So let's see how they respond if they come after them. I'm not saying they should. I'm saying that they all should get their act together. Okay, and I hope that helped. I mean, the short answer to tell them is that the Torah doesn't say that. You want to change the rules, change the rules. What can I tell you? You don't turn the other cheek is not in the Torah, and it says don't change the Torah. You changed it, so that's what you changed. And if you think you can negotiate with terrorists, you think you can negotiate with people that want to hate people, then good luck.
Right. And I'm dealing with security, Rabbi, and so there are instances where I got to stand firm, and that's the way it's got to be, and that's what I'm contracted for, and yeah. Anyway,
you have to know that. Yeah, that's right. It's the defund the police movement and all of its brilliance. It's a mission and ethics of our father that says the mole moramal. If it wasn't for the fear of the government, people would swallow each other alive. You need to have. There are some bad players. There are some good players. There's some good people. There's some good people, but you have to be honest. There are some players that are not good. It's funny in Israel. It's like I live in a. I was thinking about it this week because in Israel you have the neighborhoods that are totally observant. So we have days where the whole air is just cleared because there's no cars. Right? Every Saturday every Shabbos no cars, and there was the holidays, so there were no cars. I mean, it's not like a little. There's no cars. There's no cars that go through your neighborhood. So it's fascinating because really when you have a people that are learning Torah and this and that, it's what I mean. People that are younger in America I don't remember this so much, but there's a time in America that you could kind of let your kids out and let your kids go here. You don't do that anymore. Here in Israel, you send your 3-year-old to the store by themselves. People walk around.
I grew up in that latchkey generation, and we could go out and play until the street lights came on. Then it was time to go home.
Yeah. So it's great. It's living in an observant neighborhood in Israel. So it's like, okay, you have to watch out for the enemy doesn't come, but the people that are the Torah Jews, you don't have to worry. But if you don't live like that, if you live in places where there's some bad apples, you need to be smart and you need to be honest and vigilant. And that's got to be a lesson for what's going on in America, because in the end they hurt more people.
It spreads darkness.
More people get hurt, because what happens is that honestly, if they would have ended this war faster, if they weren't held back, less people would have died, on both sides, and they would have gotten their act together. But what happens is that if you keep trying to appease people, that I always say it's the most bizarre thing.
It's like a bottomless pit. You can't feed it enough.
Yeah, you can't feed it out. And the crazy thing, it's so phony. It bothers me so much. Nobody I mean, Trump says, President Trump says if he gets in, God willing, he's going to end the war in Ukraine day one, and he will. He will. They'll come to a compromise, but they should have come to a ceasefire a year ago. They killed over 500,000 Ukrainians and 150,000 Russians. And
We've
and
got a
the end
bunch of them
in the
living
end
here
they're going
now.
to come to a ceasefire. There, let's look at this absurdity. There, the Democratic Party, which has been in charge, has never says the word ceasefire. And when you have people, Hezbollah and Hamas and Iran, who says our goal is to destroy the entire Jewish people and the Jewish nation, that's what they call for ceasefire. How do you call for ceasefire? People that say, but we're trying to kill you. And all we're doing is ceasefire. You know the word for ceasefire in Arabic is called hudna. Hudna. Hudna does not mean ceasefire. That's
Rearm, restock.
Hudna means time to restock, to then take on the infidel and destroy them. So there you call for a ceasefire, but when you're gonna end up with a ceasefire anyway, because that's how it's gonna end. But you let a million people die. It's so
Insane.
phony,
Yeah.
so not true. And this is what drives you crazy about politics, because the people who pretend that they're so loving, they're not. They really don't care. They really have a different agenda. So God willing, we're going to see good things. You should get out and vote. If you're American,
That's right.
tell your
Coming up
friends
soon,
and-
isn't it, down there? Yeah.
Very big. It's very big. Again, I know God runs the world, but I do see, and I'm not worried about that. We do see it as God willing a good sign if we get if America gets a leader that is going to support the things that are correct, like Israel and various other things. Again, it's hard today.
I
It's
think you said
changing.
a few weeks ago. You said people get what they deserve. I mean, they get the type of leader they deserve, and
That's what I'm worried about, because really, I sometimes you watch the right wing news in America and they're like talking about, oh, Kamala Harris she's not answering questions, she's not this, she's not, but they don't understand she knows what she's doing, because the people, they don't want to hear anything. They say, well, Trump's a meanie, and she's going to talk about, you can't trust what people are saying. Hillary Clinton's real. She's talking about nice, and this is a game. This is politics. So what happens is that I'm afraid America will get what they because right now if anyone looks at any of the, unless you are a Hamas Hezbollah supporter, then you should vote for Kamala Harris. Then you should, because that's she's navigating because she wants to get both votes. But then you should, but otherwise, like what exact policy is that you think's gonna be better? Better economically. World's not going to be in a better shape. But again, it's all what we deserve. If God's going to, it says the hearts of the kings are in God's hand, and they have much less free will than the rest of us, because they're dealing with a whole nation. So I know whatever it's going to be is going to be the next step, bringing us closer to where we have to be in terms of the ultimate redemption. I hope it. It just seems to us that if we merit, it's going to be, and that Trump will be the president, then it's going to be a smoother ride. The ride's going to be a bumpier ride the other way. And so you got to tell people who get so nervous about it. He says that. I would have advised him not to drop the nicknames. I would have advised him if he would have asked me. Doesn't do any good,
Yeah.
Again, it's a funny thing because it's not one of the 7 Noahide laws. It's not one of the 13 commandments, but a Jew is not allowed to give someone a nickname because it's very demeaning. Again, it's a little different because he is dealing with some people that are very bad people. But what happens is, and this is a very funny thing, but there's a certain influence of the Jewish view, the Torah, that has taken such hold in America that people don't realize they're not applying in the right way. Yes, there is an idea not to see the good in everyone and to not to give a nickname. All these things are true. Unfortunately, though, there are some very nefarious players there. And some of those nefarious players are under the guise of being good guys. So, okay, so you play, you fight, but it doesn't work. It doesn't work because people don't like it. And that's good. They have a Jewish influence where they want people to be loving. They want people to say nice things. And so, and so they don't like when President Trump says negative things about people. It's not that he's I would advise against it, but the thing is that some of these people are really bad players, and they do they do stuff behind a lot of the lies that they present in a certain way. I was very glad that RFK Jr. got involved. I was saying that from the very beginning. A very smart guy, and he exposed so much of the stuff that is so fake that's going on in the country. I don't know if you heard this, but years ago he prosecuted. There was, you've heard of Monsanto. Monsanto is the largest maker of chemicals in America, the most deadly and dangerous chemicals. And the EPA is supposed to be watching Monsanto. And what happened was he found out that the guy was on both payrolls. So the mice was watching the cheese. And so these people come along, and you know how you know it's fake also? This is fascinating. Like they had Trump, Russia. And in the end, it came out, it was the Steele dossier. The fake thing about Trump came from Russia. So what happens is every single thing they accused him of, they were doing. It's unbelievable. It's exactly what the Torah says. It says whoever disqualifies does it with their own problem. They project it on the other person. And literally every single thing that they said that he was doing, he's the end of democracy. Okay, I think we should kick out Biden and Curran and Harris. Like, well, do you not hear what you're saying? It's just, and so that should expose a little bit the phoniness, and unfortunately, people are not being discerning enough, and they're getting stuck on. But Trump said this, and Trump said that, and then the media. Yeah, I wish but he doesn't. He's not. That's not the way he does it. But okay, he's not. Like I said to you before, he doesn't have to be the Messiah. He's not the king of Israel. He's not King David. He has a lot of things in place, and he has, certainly much, much clearer than the other side. And the fact that he's a little rough around the edges is something that's good when you're dealing with evil people.
Rabbi, I don't know if you heard that a couple of days ago, the vice president said that Trump was, like Hitler, or he idolized Hitler, right? And she talks about the Madison Square Garden, which that he's there right now in New York doing that, and that he would use troops to, go after people and to kill Americans. And they say that, but just 2 weeks ago, and Robert F. Kennedy said it, they actually sent a directive to the Pentagon allowing them for the first time in American history for American troops to use their weapons against the citizens.
Yeah.
It's documented. You can go see it. But
the
each
whole
time they accuse somebody of something, they're actually the one doing it.
It's right. He's going to put his enemies in jail. What
have you been doing?
What have you been doing for this past year? And unfortunately, I don't. And the truth is, they would dig up anything, but he gives them fodder because he talks freely. He doesn't talk about politicians. He talks freely, and so they're on his case. But yeah, and I don't know. I really don't know what's going to happen in the American election right now. I don't know. First of all, I mean, I'm very concerned that there shouldn't be cheating. Very concerned about that. You heard about Virginia right now put 1,600 people who are illegal on their on their ballots, and they're forcing them to they're allowing them to vote. I mean, so it's a little bit concerning if it's going to be a real honest election. Which if it doesn't, it's a banana republic and it's over. Now, again, I encourage you all, those that are American, to fight for your country. Dan, I encourage you to fight for Canada because Canada is a disaster under that guy.
they had a non-confidence vote.
Dan, when are you guys? When will you guys be voting for a new Prime Minister?
Not till next year, but there was a non-confidence vote by his own Liberal Party last week.
Oh yeah,
and his own party tried to ask him to step down, and he said he's staying on. So yeah, he's got that dictatorial feel for sure. But the country's turned on. We had our provincial election last week, and of course, even with the electronic counters, they weren't able to count. They're still counting handheld ballots, and there's been a major conservative shift here in my province anyways. But the one NDP party is still in power presently, but they're waiting for the final tally, and it's been a week and a day since the election, and they still can't get the final tallies in. Yeah. And then you get the magical ballots appear, now we got 67,000 mail-in ballots we forgot about, and they got to be all added up, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Just watch the storyline, and don't let any games get played down there in the States. I mean, the world is watching for sure, and our prayers are with you, and you can do your part by getting out and making sure your vote's clear.
Get out and vote. Try to talk to people. Explain to them, just get them past certain things. I mean, get them past certain things, and it's important. I look. The good news is that
Hashem runs.
Mashiach's coming. The truth's being revealed in the world. It's happening. The reality is the external gets worse as the internal is being improved. And I hate to say it, but like, when you get the shift back to the right, it lasts for a short time, and then the shift left is even harsher. And the reason for that is because people are not in a world of truth. So they have a sort of a wake up on certain things that are just common sense and logic. Like, okay, you need a police force to enforce the law, which is just, nobody would have said otherwise 10 years ago, 5 years ago. But then afterwards, once they get that, then they swing back. So, I think that, ultimately the good news is that there's going to be a proper leadership in Israel. It's interesting that Netanyahu seems to have gotten a little bit more with the program. He's been quoting the Torah more. He's been seeming to go out a little bit more, and I think, which is great news. He's starting to see his role a little bit clearer in terms of what his place is and what he needs to be doing, which is good. But eventually there'll be a righteous leader in Israel, a rabbinic leader, and the world will move towards goodness, and that's happening. And it's incumbent upon everyone's a Noachai to try to do what they can with their community to make sure they're on the right side of history.
All right. Rabbi,
okay,
we really
everybody.
appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Well,
Have
thank
a
you so much,
wonderful
Rabbi.
evening.
Are you aiming for next week as well to do a part 5?
Yeah, God willing, next week. Yeah.
God willing.
right.
Okay. Well, Rod, always good to see you and all,
Thank you,
all
Dan.
the people down in Netiv, and